Well, this episode of the Zapata Brand podcast is actually very, very interesting. It is actually almost what the Zapata Brand podcast is about. It's a guy who's going to show you integrity. He's someone who's going to show you what hard work does and the never give up attitude. It's how we created this podcast. I try to have guests on that are similar to that. This one is no different. As a matter of fact, there was a movie made about him. It was called Invincible, starring Mark Wahlberg. He joins us today on the Zapata Brand podcast.
Coming up next on the Zapata Brand podcast, he's a former wide receiver and special teams player for the Philadelphia Eagles. His amazing story was the inspiration behind the 2006 film Invincible, starring Mark Wahlberg. This man has beaten the odds numerous times with his never give up attitude. The Zapata Brand welcomes Vince Papale.
Vince Papale, it is a pleasure to have you here on the Zapata Brand podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Be with you up in Berwick, PA, baby. I'm down in Jupiter, Florida.
You're in Florida now?
Yeah, I'm right there, right here in Jupiter, Florida.
So you got so you don't get the 23-degree weather we had this morning.
No. I woke up unfortunately, I woke up to about 68. And
unfortunately,
yeah, a little drizzle. You know, we had a dry spell, so it's good.
Yeah,
so everything is green. You know, it looks good.
When did you move out down there to down there?
It's been right around the COVID. I came down. I actually came down for a speaking engagement for the police, and that's 8 years ago. It's called COPS, Concerns of Police Survivors. That little, you can just see that's a Blue Lives Matter flag, and that's from the golf tournament I just played at Trump International just last week. And at any rate, you know, I came down, and then my wife Janet, who was not a Giants fan, by the way, and we'll talk about that jersey behind us when we have a chance. But you know, my wife Janet lived in right outside of Boca Raton when I met her in '92, and I didn't meet her in '76 when I was playing. So I met her in '92, and so she's a golfer and lived on a golf course, and here we are. So. You know, you see Ricky Fowler running around here. See Joe Namath running around, Ernie Els, and
no kidding.
Yeah. Jupiter is like is the golf capital of at least the East Coast, the Southeast. It's spectacular. There's so many beautiful golf courses, and you know, I belong to a golf course that Tiger Woods' son plays at, and he's there, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
How's Joe these days? Joe Namath.
Well, he's doing good. You know, I mean, Joe's Joe. He's in his 80s, and you know, he's Joe will always be Joe. He's the legend. I see him all the time, either at the Publix or at this place called EVO, which is his favorite restaurant down here. You know, it's a great Italian restaurant. It's the spot. Yeah, that and 1000 North. They all have their spots. 1000 North is Michael's place, you know, along with about 150 other contributors. But it's cool here. We're right off the intercoastal, right off the Atlantic, and it's about 35 miles north of West Palm Beach or Palm Beach.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of going south at some point. I just have to, at some point, figure out what the heck I want to do.
Yeah. Well, at some point, they were telling me back in the day that I was going south every day. So yeah.
Well, let's get back into the story here. My podcast is I have a lot of people who have, and I take it from me, being a boxer, always comparing life with boxing and getting through all this different difficulties. And I've had people on who've gone through so much stuff, persevere, get through, determination. So when I was given the opportunity by my brother to say, hey, I can get Vince Papale on, I jumped at it. You are like the real life Rocky, in a sense.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Because of that moniker, that's how the whole movie got started. You know, a lot of people. I've written a few books. This is one of my favorites. It's How to Be it's Be Invincible, a playbook for reaching your full potential. My wife Janet and I wrote it. But actually, because I was always referred to as a real life Rocky, and I was led to believe that Sylvester Stallone did not appreciate that until I met him, and I actually met him when they were doing Creed, and they were doing the press conference for Creed, and they invited me to be their MC. I was the MC for that, which was like, whoa, that was so freaking cool. Right on the art museum steps, you know. And at any rate, you know, Rocky was turning 25, the movie, in 02.
Mm-hmm.
And NFL Films and ESPN decided to do a feature comparing me to Rocky. And we got the okay from Warner Brothers. We got the okay from Disney, you know, Disney owning ESPN. And the next day, Hollywood was calling. And somebody took a risk. They got a spec script, gave the script to the guys that did Miracle and Rookie, along with about 10 other producers and movie studios in Hollywood. Philadelphia didn't even jump on it. They said, "Oh, that'll never happen. It's not a story." So Hollywood jumped all over it, and Disney nailed it. Disney in 04, in October of 04, paid X amount of dollars for it, and I became their property. And then, you know, Labor Day 06, the movie came out and ran #1 in the box office for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Crazy stuff, man. So it just today, you know, I just got 2 appearances. They're coming out of nowhere. You know, it's 18 years since this movie's been out, but, you know, it passes through so many generations.
Right.
I think it's got some substance to it, as did Rocky. You know, I mean, we're all ham and eggers in life, you know, and for you to have jumped in the ring, I mean, God bless you. I don't know how you do that. And
you know, as a matter of fact, I'm getting back in April 27th next year.
Man. Oh, really?
I don't know why.
Yeah, what weight are you?
Oh boy, well, I fought at 47. I'm going to be 205 tonight. I got to get to 175.
How are you going to do that? You're going to run the streets, or what are you going to do?
Well, what I do is I do a lot of calorie counting, so
Okay.
I'll lose my weight off through the calorie counting.
Okay.
Kind of, it's not the greatest at my age to do, because
How old
you
are
know
you?
I'm 47.
Yeah, God darn, but I'm like Rocky 10. There you go.
Well, no, see, the thing is this. I thought of it to be a good idea. They have a master's division here, and I figured, why not? And at the time, now let's talk about a few years ago. I was going through a really bad divorce, and I figured I'll get in shape. I'll look good finally. And then the ring started calling, and I figured I'd get in the ring. It'd be great for me. And fortunately, it was for me for a little bit there. And I got out and just concentrated on my business and did that. And you know, it was something that a movie like yours inspires people to do. And you're going back to when you're saying how it goes through generations. When I told my kid that I was going to have the guy from In-Vince-Ible, who the movie was made after, the real guy, not Mark Wahlberg, the real guy, to have your kid turn to you and go, "That is the coolest thing."
Oh, cool.
My kid's 12. He's 12.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's a great thing. But it's funny with the 10 and 11, 12-year-olds, because they say, he don't look like Mark Wahlberg, you know, because
Well, I'll tell you, you have the good actor looks, which you could have played. And you know what? I was looking at your personality too. And maybe if you had some classes of acting, you would have been perfect for the part. Perfect.
no,
You would have.
I didn't want to take some of those hits those guys were delivering. They were all Arena Football League players and former NFL guys. All the guys in the football scenes, except for the rough touch, you know, the mud scenes.
Yes.
They were first responders, which was really cool. But what they did is they had a free agent tryout for 5 open spots for guys to come in and be in the scenes, the football scenes. And that was really cool. When I was there were about 200 guys there vying for 5 spots.
So you were hands-on.
They did the real thing. It's pretty cool.
So you were really hands-on in the filmmaking.
I was as hands-on as I could be. I helped develop the script. And I never met the guys. Everything was done through the phone, you know, and everything was at fax machines. You know, this is all starting in 2002, 2003. So you didn't have that kind of stuff. You didn't have FaceTime. You didn't have this and that. Everything was done over the phone. I didn't really meet the guy, the executive producer, Ken Mock, and the writer, Brad Gann, who wrote Oscar de la Hoya. He wrote his story and his biography. So I didn't meet them until Janet, my wife Janet. Okay, here's the real story. She was a world-class Olympic caliber gymnast on that Olympic team, but didn't compete because of injuries back in the Munich days. Janet was on the Olympic committee, and we're going out to Calais for the Olympic trials for gymnastics. And we figured, why the hell not start? Let's go down to Venice Beach and let's go down to Hollywood and meet these people that have taken a risk, and they've already spent a few bucks on the movie. They got the term Invincible. Actually, Warner Brothers had the name Invincible, so they did a little horse trading. So they got the Invincible. And Ray Didinger, who was a writer from Philadelphia, Hall of Fame writer, came up with the name Invincible Vince Papale. So all that stuff was happening. And then when I met these guys, we went to this place called The Rose, and it was so cool because we're right there in Venice Beach, and I'm looking, all these celebrities were in there, and I was having a couple Bloody Marys, feeling no pain at about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I started telling them stories. And then they said, Jesus, we didn't get that over the phone. This is not like it's in a Zoom cast. We didn't get that over the phone. So what they did is they rewrote the script, and then in October they gave the script out to a bunch of people, and that's how the whole thing got started. And
Wow.
and Disney bought it, and then Disney took over, and the guys that did Miracle and Rookie, Mark and Gordon, they took over, and then they got me involved, and involved with the script, and then of course they're going to change things around a little bit,
Right.
but I had a lot to do with the wardrobe. Some of the spots that we were, they were the real spots I used to hang out at. The movie was supposed to be shot in New York, but Janet was the head gymnastics coach at the University of Penn, and the mayor then was Ed Rendell, Mayor Rendell, that became the governor. And we couldn't get the tax credit. So Janet went to the governor because she knew him. And she says, hey, this movie Invincible, that's going to be shot in New York. He says, yeah, I heard all about it. She said, you know who my husband is? He said, no. He said, it's Vince Papale. The movie's about my husband. And so Governor Rendell, knowing Janet the way he knew her, and this all happened at a film festival, they flipped the movie from New York to Philadelphia. And then it was just in October of 2005. I mean, right around the 4th of July in 2005, the movie started shooting for 13 weeks. It was crazy, man. Absolutely nuts.
And Ed Rendell's a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Oh, yeah. He's a huge Philly fan. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know how anybody, if you're an Eagles fan right now, after those Cowboys lost, man, they were exposed a little bit.
Well, I don't know about exposed per se. Let's wait a little bit down the road when playoff time comes. Let's just wait a little bit longer till the playoff.
You know what? First, you got to play mistake-free football. You can't make mental errors, and you certainly can't turn the ball over four times. And down on the goal line, for crying out loud.
You're not going to beat anybody turning the ball over 4 times,
especially against the Cowboys, at home. But hey, you got to keep the faith, baby.
Does. So let's go back a little bit. I want to go back to the beginning. Who was Vince Papale in high school?
Who was he? He's just a skinny little kid that was told that he was too small, couldn't play football, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. I ran track in junior high school. I played basketball in junior high school. I played football in junior high school. But when I was 14 years old, I wasn't even 100 pounds, not 5 feet tall. So, but I got away with a lot of stuff because of my speed. I was the fastest kid in the class. That might have been the fastest kid in the county. I ran a 100-yard dash against Billy White Shoes Johnson, the great return guy from Houston Oilers.
Yeah.
And he beat me by a stride. I mean, that's the kind of speed that I had. And, so that got me away with a lot of stuff. But I got into high school. They told me the football coach was a Marine sergeant. You're too small, you'll get hurt. So I tried playing soccer, but I was so aggressive and so physical, even as I was only about 5'1" at that point. I was so aggressive. I kept getting a gold card, then a red card. So that was the end of that. I played basketball. I went out for track, and the track coach was just this guy made us run around the track. And the track coach I had before was Marty Stern, who became the head track coach for the women at Villanova, and then eventually went down to Tennessee. And he was in the Maccabi games for Israel. I mean, I had one of the greatest track coaches ever teaching me track and field I go from a Marty Stern to this guy who was an offensive line coach coaching track.
Right.
And I cut a practice one time and he cut me and told me I had a bad attitude. So I didn't do that. And I went out for baseball and I got a letter in baseball. And then my senior year, it all came to fruition. My junior high school phys ed teacher and football coach got the head coaching job at the high school. And he contacted me and he says, I want you to come out. He said, well, Coach, they told me I was too small. He says, no, you're not too small for my offense. So I went out, and hey, wouldn't you know it, I wound up leading the team in touchdowns and receptions. And I didn't get any. I was still only 5'8", maybe 170 pounds, if I was even that, when a senior in high school. So I
Right.
got no offers from anybody, but I was going to go on a walk-on to Westchester State Teachers College, which is now university.
Yeah.
And the freshman coach was my science teacher in junior high school. So he was going to let me come on as a free agent, basically, as a walk-on. And because he liked, he knew I had a lot of heart. Now, while this is all going on, my mother is in and out of a mental hospital. She suffered from paranoia and schizophrenia and all kinds of stuff. And she was a great, great athlete. She played baseball in something as similar as the League of Their Own. And my dad was a pig farmer. My mom and dad never got beyond the 8th grade. So, and he's working at Westinghouse on strike all the time. All this is happening, as I'm going through my puberty years and high school years. But the guy that kept me together was my head coach, George Corner.
Now, you were a very good pole vaulter, though.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. That's a funny thing. I never pole vaulted before. I used to pole vault across the creek. I grew up in a house. We didn't have creeks. Creeks were for the guys they were for the upper middle class. We were lower middle class. All the fathers worked on the Delaware River right by the Philly airport. The mothers, you didn't have washer dryers. Everything was done by hand. You had clotheslines. And I used to go over the creek with a bamboo pole or go over the clotheslines. So when Coach Corner, after he coached me in football, I played basketball, got a letter, and Coach says, "Come on out for the for the track team, would you?" He says, "I need you. You're my fastest guy. I'll let you run hurdles. You can run the relays and the speed events." And I said, "I want a pole vault." And he says, "I promised your dad that I wouldn't let you pole vault." So I said, "Coach, come here. Let me show you something." So I took him down to the pole vault pit, and in street clothes, I broke the school record, which was 11 feet 2 inches, and with a metal pole. In street clothes, I did that. And I said, "You think I can pole vault now?" Well, guess what? He wound up getting me one of those fiberglass poles. That was right after John Ulysses cleared 16 feet. And in 3 months, I became county champion, district champion, qualified for the states. And I hit 14.6 on Father's Day. And I got a scholarship to St. Joe's. That was my dad's Father's Day gift. So pole vault and track and field was the thing. So
you weren't recruited for that? You weren't recruited for track at all?
Well, yeah, I was, but I went to all these schools, and they already had their guy because I was a late bloomer. They're giving their scholarships away when they're. So I did a tryout. I went to LaSalle, I went to Temple, I went to Villanova, and they all said that we already got their guy. Well, guess what? They had a meet a champion at the end of the year. They had like all the different leagues in the greater Philadelphia area, the 5 or 6 or 7 of them, and we all competed head to head. And I beat them all, and I vaulted almost 18 inches over my personal best because I was going against them. And it's funny because the track coach from Temple was a great guy, Jack St. Clair. I loved him. And my first meet against him, I won 5 of the 5 events I was in. And I just went up to him. I said, "Hey, coach, it's like Toby Keith. How do you like me now?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, what do you think, coach?" I says, "I'm going to be around for the next 3 years. I'm just going to terrorize the hell out of the Temple House." And he just laughed.
So you still competed in track, even though you were in college, because it's a little different now. You would play just one sport.
Well, the basketball coach liked me a lot because he wanted me to be a spot player, get in there because I was playing pickup games and I could, 2-hand dunk at 6'1", 6'2". I had a pretty good lift. And he wanted me to come out, but my coach wouldn't let me do that. So, but we didn't have college football. And Jack Ramsey, Dr. Jack Ramsey, from Portland, was our athletic director when I went in there, and actually Jack Ramsey saved my life because when I was a freshman and I had this scholarship, I was just goofing off. I was playing basketball all the time. I hardly, I wound up flunking out. And then so Jack Ramsey pulled me into the office and I was as nervous as hell. And he said, "What's going on?" He says, "I understand there's things going on at home with your mom." And I said, "I can't use that as an excuse. I just effed up, man." And he says, "I understand what's going on." He says, "I'm going to give you," he says, "here's what you do." He says, "You go to summer school and you give me a 3.5, give me a 3.5 in 4 classes." And he says, "I'll give you your scholarship back." So I gave him 2 A's and 2 B's and got my scholarship back and wound up being captain of the team. We're for, second chances. We're all, you're looking for your second chance. And I'm getting goose pimples telling this story. I mean, I ain't no talking to you if I don't, and this guy not giving me that shot.
Yeah.
So, great.
So after you get to there, what is your trajectory? Meaning when you went to college,
Right.
and were you thinking, okay, obviously football wasn't even in NFL wasn't even as big as it is now.
My dream, season ticket holder.
Yeah, you were a season ticket holder. It was a dream of yours to get there. But in the back of your head, you have to look logically. You say, okay, they didn't give me a shot in high school. They're barely giving me a shot in college. Or they give me a shot in college, but no walk-on scholarship to D1 school.
Right.
What were you looking to do beyond college?
Well, Bruce Jenner was my idol. The decathlete Bruce Jenner, and this guy was my idol. And I was competing in 5 events every track meet, every dual track meet. Matter of fact, I still have the record for 3 firsts and a championship meet for 3 firsts and a second and a third. And but my goal was to try to qualify for the Olympic trials in the decathlon. Okay. And at the same time, I was working on my master's degree. I was the head track coach at my alma mater, and I was going through a nasty divorce, and it was brutal. But all these things, so that was my thing, and then after 5-6 years of teaching. And I couldn't because of the NCAA and the AAU. They were 2 competing groups. The AAU were the post NCAA guys, and the NCAA obviously the college. I couldn't get into a meet to try to qualify for the Olympic trials, so I just got pissed off. And I was always playing in those rough touch bar leagues. I played for 3 or 4 teams just to get a free beer, for crying out loud, And, really. And I play a game on a Sunday morning and then go right from there in my uniform and jump on the train and go down and watch the Eagles, because I was a season ticket holder with all the guys that were in the movie. But so the Olympic trials, it didn't happen, and so I started playing semi-pro football. And I was playing this one game, and somebody saw me, and he turned out to be the general manager for the Philadelphia Bell, the World Football League. Now I'm 28 years old now. And still no college football, and so when they had a free agent tryout, there were about 600 guys, and of those 600, 2 survived. Me and a guy Dennis Lazzi from Notre Dame, and I went through 4 more tryouts, and I wound up starting for the Bell, and that's the league that Zonka, Kick, and Warfield all defected to from Miami, the Dolphins, into the Memphis Showboats or the Memphis Southmen. Ironically, my son played for the Memphis Showboats in the U.S.
Yeah, I did actually read that. Yes, I did.
Yeah. See that. So I'm in this league, and so the school, the league folds after a year and a half, and I contact my high school and I say, well, here I am. I'm ready to come back and teach, and they say, well, we don't have anything for you, dude, but there is going to be a spot open for you in the fall. Now this is in the spring. Of 76, the spring of 76, and after 2 years, a year and a half of the world, and so I started bartending and substitute teaching and stayed in shape. And Dick Vermeil came prancing into town and says he's going to have a free agent tryout, and as they say, that's the movie. That's where the movie picked it up. They didn't go back, and they didn't go back. They wanted to make sure that they stayed that way. That would have been more dramatic. And so and I signed off on it, and away we went. And that's how they got me as a part-time bartender and a school teacher. If you look at the cover of the movie, that goes sort of something like this. The cover of the movie right there, and the movie jacket says, a bartender. But in reality, I was a school teacher working on his master's, chasing the track and field dream. And anyway, there it was. And then after the tryout, this is the cool thing. That one scene where Coach Vermeil came up and talked about, you're faster than that car of yours. And that 15 minutes later, I was called up we had that conversation, believe it or not, at the Veteran Stadium elevator. And 15 minutes later, I was called up to the executive offices, and I signed a contract for $21 grand.
21 grand.
21 grand. And this is April. This is April. So
Oh
I,
man.
oh my God, do I make the team? He said, no, you got to make the team. Says, the training camp's going to start around July 4th. He said, but you can train here every day.
Okay.
So I started training at Veterans Stadium where the Eagles were, and it's where the Phillies played. And I started training with a guy, Gus Huffing, who was our strength and conditioner coach for not only the Eagles, but them. And he was a Kung Fu guy. They didn't have UFC back then, but he was a Kung Fu guy. And I'm training with Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt, and Roman Gabriel. That we had just gotten. Roman Gabriel was there for a couple of years. He was with the Rams, the All-Pro from the Rams. Go Chiefs.
Yeah.
And Roman and Gabe we had a great relationship, and I worked with him for 3-4 months, and right into training camp. And when we got to training camp, Gabe was always looking for me. We had a great friendship, and because of that, and I wound up in training camp leading the team in receptions and touchdowns.
Now,
I've been pissed off if I got cut from the team, but the movie made it a little bit different.
if they're going to do that, they're going to do that for the
Well, that's okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I didn't have an issue with it. What the hell? It's Disney.
No.
They're putting $50 million into this sucker.
So growing up, I want to ask you, your relationship with your dad in the movie is a little bit it's either strained. Now your relationship with your mom already in real life has mental issues.
That's right.
But your relationship with your dad in the movie is portrayed as strained, where he's not so much 100% on board. Maybe tells you to sit that one out. Did that affect you in a way that you and I'm reading this great book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely, where something can motivate you, whether it's again a divorce, something like that, where that puts that fire that you need to accelerate. Was that the catalyst, or was it your relationship, that letter that your ex-wife had wrote?
Well, that was part of it. Yeah, my dad, no, he was into it full time. After I got the divorce, everything sort of came together a little bit with my dad. So imagine what he was going through. He's on strike all the time at Westinghouse, and then my mom, we lost our insurance. I'm living in a house that's no bigger than this. I had my garage right down here in Florida turned into a studio. And the house was no bigger than that. And he had a gas station, and I'm pumping gas, and I'm doing all these kinds of things when that's happening. So there was, and the love word was never ever said in our house. And so when I got that scholarship on Father's Day in 1964, that's the first time my father ever shed a tear on my behalf and said that he loved me, and he apologized. He said, I've been really hard on you. So that, and then, after going through the divorce, my dad and I were like that. And I couldn't have done it without my father. He was behind me 100%. But again, Kevin Conway did a great job at depicting my father. I told him all the stories, and he did as good as he could based upon the script that he had. The original script didn't even have my father in it. And what I did is I took the director of the movie. He was going back to the West Coast where he was, and he asked me to take him to the movies. Take him to the airport, and we had 3 hours to kill. And I said, hey, I'm going to take you down to the real Maxes, the original Maxes. And we went down to the original Maxes, and I walked in. This is my buddy Erickson. And I didn't mention, and he's all West Coast. He's got his do-rag on, and his clogs. And everybody started talking about my dad. And we get in the car afterwards, and I'm going to take him to the airport. And these are a bunch of guys from Westinghouse. I take him to the airport. Steve Miller Band comes on, Fly Like an Eagle. Do, 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 do. Right? I said, Erickson, that's Kingy. That's my dad's nickname. I said, that's Kingy. And he wants to be in this movie. And so they wrote him into the script. And the guy that wrote him into the script is the guy that did Miracle and also did Rookie. And, so my dad was written into the script, and man, it was great. It was great. And they didn't want to bring my mother in. They thought it would have been a little bit macabre, but my mom, she never saw me compete live, except in junior high school. But then when everything started to happen, and she had ringing of the ear and a couple of nervous breakdowns, electric shock, insulin shock. But she was a fighter, man. I'll tell you. My mom was a great athlete, and I owe a lot to her. And my dad doing shift work at Westinghouse. It was Wasn't easy. But you know what? You can use it as an excuse for failure. You can use it as a reason why you got tough, and you use it as a motivator. And that was always my motivator. I was never ever going to let anybody say that because of my mom's mental illness or because of this or that I couldn't do it. It was all on me. And hey, luckily I got the opportunities. But Vermeil has a great saying. He says, opportunity is all about preparation. And my wife, Janet, she says, you don't know when the opportunity's out there. She keeps telling our kids, you just got to seize them, when they're there. But be ready.
And so now, speaking of Dick Vermeil, he gives you this opportunity. Now he gave you when they give you the 20,000, you're not guaranteed a spot. Am I correct?
Oh no, hell no.
Okay, because this is the old NFL. This was not the. This was the you can get cut.
There were no signing bonuses. I didn't even get a 6-pack of beer for crying out loud.
I know. So you go to training camp, and so when you're first initially getting into the training camp. Now these are people, you have veterans there. You have people that are now the Eagles weren't good at that point. They weren't.
They sort of sucked.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Yeah, they were 2-12.
So when you first get there, what is your initial like reading the room?
That's a great question, because it's that first, and you mentioned the veterans and all that stuff. That first week of practice, we're just off, and it was the 4th of July. It was 4th of July weekend. And the first guys in, they were the free agents, and they were, and we had very few draft picks because they brought Bill Berge in from Cincinnati and gave up their number 1s and 2s. I think the first draft pick we had was a 2nd or 3rd round, and they brought in a safety or a cornerback. And anyway, I was going against all these kids. I wasn't going against the veterans yet, except the veterans were the quarterbacks and the specialists, the kickers. Mm-hmm. And there's guess who's there? Guess who's the quarterback? Gabe, my man, number 8.
Oh, and no kidding.
It's kicking ass, man. And these guys, and then these wide receivers, they weren't prepared for the football the way I was prepared. I was a decathlete. I ran 10 miles in less than an hour. That's the kind of endurance that I had back, and that's the endurance I had even when I was 30. So I could run forever. And guess what? Widener College, where training camp was 6 miles from where I grew up. So all the guys from Westinghouse are there, all my dad's buddies, all the guys from the bars that I played for, my students, the kids that I coached, they're all coming there. Every pass I caught, you would have thought that I caught the winning pass of walk-off, in the Super Bowl. And just all that stuff. And they just kept, every time I'd catch a pass. So then the veterans come in. And I hit everything too, because, I played a different style of football. We were allowed to block below the waist there. We were allowed to crack back. We could deep cleat guys. I could come from the outside in on a sweep and just put my helmet right into the solar plexus of a linebacker. And it, that fast. That's how fast they would get down. You can't do that anymore.
No, it's definitely a different league now.
Yeah, it's a pretty tough shot to take. But when the veterans came in, I backed off, and Coach Vermeil, after 2 days, he said, "What's going on, man?" And he said, "Well, these guys are my idols. I don't want to hurt anybody." "Your idols, Jesus Christ! They were 2-12." He says, "Half of them are going to be gone by the time the move report." And he said, "Get your head out of your rear end." And he says, "I'll give you a couple, 3 weeks. I'll give you 2 preseason games." And he said, "Show me what you got." And guess what? I showed him what I had, and I stayed for the next 4, and there was it. But it was funny because the wide receivers, we had about 18 wide receivers, and I'd go run a route, and a lot of those guys were all bent over. They're holding on to they're holding on. They're sucking. Yeah. We're in full pads, and it's 90 degrees. And I had just caught a pass maybe, and the crowd's going crazy, all my students and that kind of stuff. And I'd say, "Hey, guys," I said, I'll take your spot if you want. They didn't realize that I would show up on tape, or when they had a video back then, not video, they had film. I would show up on film 6, 10, 18 times, doing 1-on-1s and the 7-on-7s, because these guys were tired. So they just didn't get it. So anyway, I found out I made the team, and there we go.
And you never played with organized football with pads on.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did in the World Football League.
In the World Football League, but you're
Yeah.
talking about on this level. Now you
Oh
got
no,
your
oh my God, no. I mean, you go from like the rough touch, then you go the rough touch up to the World
Mhm.
Football League. I mean, to the semi-pro, and then half these guys, they're in the semi-pro. I was going against, half these guys were either drunk or stoned when I was going against them. And, I'm serious, secondary smoke really is crazy. But anyway,
Mm.
but
Mm.
when I got into the World League, I said, "Whoa!" Because there were a lot of former NFL guys that were trying to keep their careers alive and get back because they thought that the league would be a feeder for the NFL. And then after it was folded, and then I got that shot with it wasn't even comparison, just the tempo and the speed. And then going from a preseason game, the Cowboys game in the movie, they made it look like I was backing off a little bit. I did it on that first play. I was just totally. I was in awe of being on the field at Texas Stadium with 70,000 people, and it was 100 some degrees on the field, and near Too Tall Jones, Harvey Martin, Bob Brunig, Roger Staubach. I mean, are you kidding me? And so they're on the field, and but I actually had a pretty good game. But then we had that first home game, and there was nothing like it. There was my dad in the stands and my buddies in the stands, and had a couple of hits, and that was it.
So let's go back to two things. Number one, what was the biggest difference that you noticed from the World Football League to the NFL?
The athleticism of the athletes, of the players, even the linemen, and how great of athletes they were, and the ferocity of the game, the hitting, the intensity. There was no comparison whatsoever. And the preparation, and the way the meetings were conducted, it was a whole different ball game. So, and just the way practices were, Coach Ramil was extremely organized. And he always used to say, God is first, and then he kept going through his list of people that he would be, and he wanted to get up and be one of them, and so but Coach and I we had this something going on that was unspoken. His father, is of Italian descent. His father was a mechanic. My dad was a mechanic. He came from a farm basically in Calistoga out there in California. And my dad was a farmer, and he was a coach. I was a coach. He was a teacher. I was a teacher. And so we had that little bond going on. And he respected me for that. Plus, he respected how hard I worked, and I kept my mouth shut. And I was delivering some good hits, but I took some good ones too.
Yeah, and I think Dick Vermeil was probably one of the first player coaches.
Yeah, well, he was the first special teams coach.
No, I'm saying he was a player's coach.
A player's coach.
Not can.
Oh
no.
Oh my God! Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he became the players' coach.
Okay.
What happened is after the second, I was captain of the team the second year, and he was riding the guys pretty hard, and I had the guys come to me. They said, "Look, you and Coach have this special thing going. Could you talk to him?" Oh my God! He tore me a new one. Yeah, excuses. But then Sid Gilman came in, who was the great coach from San Diego, back in the day. And then he calmed down the coach a lot. And all of a sudden, Coach became a player's coach. And he had what was called the Dirty Dozen, all the guys from the original roster that lasted with him. And then he became basically one of us. He's a lot like, Doug Peterson's a good buddy of mine, and Doug's that perfect player's coach. And, and Dick became that perfect player's coach. And I see Coach Ramil all the time. Matter of fact, I have a hat right here. Hold on real quick.
Yeah.
This is a hat that I'm very proud of. And this is from his Hall of Fame induction.
Look at that.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Unbelievable.
Coach Ramil, that's it right there.
So
I'm very close to him, and his daughter lives down here, not too far away in Boca. And yeah, we're together. We're together a lot, and I'm still bleeding green.
Yeah. So once you're there, so Dick Vermeil gives you your shot, you're in there. So secondly, when you first get out on your home field, you're in that tunnel there at Veteran Stadium at the time. It was Veteran Stadium, and you're your dad's there. You're essentially home. What is the feeling in your? Can you explain that feeling?
Yeah, it's absolutely totally insanity. But Dennis Franks and me, God bless my Dennis Franks, love you, Dennis. And Dennis and I had this pregame thing. We couldn't wait to get to the stadium. And what we did is we got to the stadium. The kickoff wasn't at 1. We were there about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, sitting in the stands in our clothes, just looking around. And I'm looking up where I have my season tickets, knowing that in a couple of hours, my dad and all my buddies are going to be in the stands, And then coming out for the pregame warm up, and then seeing people. My feet didn't even touch the ground when we're going through pat and go and the warm ups. But man, oh man, when they introduced the crowd, even though it was a losing team, and there it was, and the crowd was absolutely packed. There were signs all over the place, and the Veteran Stadium and it's a bowl stadium. Veteran Stadium already had a great, not a good reputation for the opposing team. And when they said, and the remainder of the Philadelphia Eagles, I was the first guy out, sprinted down the goal line, and I looked up to my dad and all my buddies and say, "Let's go," and here we go. And
So
I think I had 3 or 4 solos in that game, and I got invited to my first team party, and the hit at the end of the game that would have led us to winning the game, and I got invited to my first team party. And that was the acceptance, because I was going through a lot of crap in training camp. Those guys weren't sure if I was the real deal yet. But I won them over in that game. And then the next year, those same guys that were giving me all that grief voted me captain of the team. You're going to lead us, Vince. That was pretty special.
Yeah, that's got to be probably one of the most special times in your life, other than obviously your
children. There were a lot of
children.
tears between my dad and me. And then, Lane Johnson, and God bless all those guys that are getting the Walter Payton Award. I was lucky enough to get that in '77, and I actually wound up being a finalist with Walter and with Peyton Manning, Peyton's dad, Archie, and also Roger Staubach. So I went out to Chicago for that event. I mean, what an honor that was. So, and then the movie. I mean, you can't even replace this. This is insane.
So then after, as you're going to winding down you played 3 years, all right? Correct.
3 years, and 4th year was injured reserve.
Okay.
Shoulders out, yeah.
You blew them both out.
I separated this one. You can just about see that. You can still see the.
Oh yeah.
And I dislocated this one in my first preseason game. I came back, actually trying to get even with a guy who hit me, cheap shotted me, and sort of re-injured the separated shoulder that I had surgery on after the Hall of Fame, after the wild card game we had against Atlanta. And then I went. Coach says, "Oh, I had 4 catches," and coach says, "You're out." And I said, "One more hit," and I wanted to get even with this sucker. He was their first round draft pick. That was the original Baltimore Colts at Municipal Field, and I hit the guy. I got him, but this shoulder was out, and I tore this one out. So I had a separated right and a dislocated left.
Okay, so
that's it.
I mean, at least you got your hit in.
yeah, I got that hit right. It's funny because Jaws said, "You ready for this game?" We're busing from Philly down to Baltimore, and I said, "Ronnie, I said, Jaws, I'm going to play this game like it's the last game I ever played." Yeah, right.
Wow. Jaws has a tournament right up the block here, right over the mountain. He has a tournament every year here.
Oh, he's the best, man. I'll tell you, people ask me who's one of my favorite teammates aside from Denny Franks, my roommate teammate, and all that. But Jaws, without a doubt, man, you talk about a competitor and a team guy and what he does, and and then the empire that he's grown and what he does in the community for kids. He's got the Ron Jaworski playbook. It's great. He's the best.
So as you wrapped up that final year, the 4th year, when did you decide? I think this is the end. And again, it had to be hard for you. I talked to Bo when he decided to give it a rest. It just was so physical on his body because he played in the 80s too, where those hits are brutal.
Yeah.
So I mean, he was like, I just needed one more year. He got that year, and you needed that one more hit. You got that hit in.
Yeah.
When did you just decide I want to do something different? Because you do have You're very well educated. You have 2 masters, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
But one, I don't have any masters, but I was working on my masters, but I do
Okay.
not have 2 masters, so we can't
Okay.
say. Yeah.
All right. So, but you are very well educated. When did you say, I'm going to now go to a different direction?
Well, they sort of told me that.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
if you're lucky enough to either retire or be retired. With me, we're in or out. So the injuries were it. I was 34 years old. They're bringing in a kid from Penn State, Scott Fitzke, who I remember watching when I was coaching high school track. I remember him watching him win a 100-yard dash in Penn State in the state high school championship, which was really cool. And at that same time, I'm watching this guy throw the discus and be the state discus champion. And who the hell was that? That was Dennis Franks, who became my best friend and roommate.
Oh, no
So,
kidding.
yeah, I mean that was a crazy thing. So, but I had a great out because I was working in the off season with CBS Philadelphia, WCAU, Channel 10.
Okay.
So I was doing the weekend sports for them. So I immediately stepped right in, and then they brought in somebody else who had already been there, and we didn't get along too well. So I was relieved from my post there in TV. And I got into sales and marketing, and I wanted to get back into broadcasting. So I got into radio and did morning drive radio for the team that actually broadcast the 76ers with Billy Cunningham, their head coach, and Dr. J, when they won the world championship over the Lakers. So I was the guy that was all part of that, which was really, really cool. But then, after a couple of 3-4 years, I went through another divorce, and I got into sales and marketing, and and then in 04, the movie, the 02, the opportunity comes up. I remarried Janet, the love of my life, and my wing. We get married in '93, and boom, things just changed. It was great.
It's funny. You and Bo said the same thing to me when I said about football. You said no, they tell you it's over. He said the same thing to me. It's crazy. I had him on, and he was just like, I asked him when you thought. He said, no, they kind of tell you you're gone.
Is it Bo knows?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, he knew, man. I'll tell you what, we love Bo. Yeah, I'll tell you, he was awesome. When he ran into the tunnel, that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And then just watch him. I mean, what an incredible athlete. But and then your body knows. Look, man, I was a pole vaulter. And, I'm dropping from 14, 15 feet in the sawdust. They hadn't even come out with the foam pits yet. So, and then I'm a long jumper, triple jumper, high hurdler. And so, my back and my legs were pretty banged up. Then 2 years in the world, and then, 3.5 years in the NFL. I was pretty much ready to roll it up. I still hit that chiropractor down the road here for some of those things that happened back in the day.
Well, Vince, let me ask you about somebody. Let me ask you about your wife. How important is she in your life now? Now, take it back to Invincible comes out, the movie's there, and now you're getting back into meeting your wife here. How important was it for her to be in your life that time?
Oh, it's amazing. We met in '92.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started dating in '93, and then we dated, got married, and had our child, our Gabriella. She's my baby is going to turn 30 on New Year's Eve, or New Year's Eve. And so we had a child really quick. I was 47, Janet was 40, and that just totally changed my life. And I have a world-class gymnast. I've got. They should have a movie about her. I mean, just the things that she's done and traveled around. She's traveling around the world wearing USA. That thing right on behind me, wearing that when she's 16, 17 years old, representing the United States, and then going to the University of Penn and starting their program and coaching there for 13 years, and the impact and coaching all over the world. She's been to South Africa, Saudi Arabia. I mean, she's Bermuda, Europe, Italy, Bangkok. These are the places that she's coached. And so we have a synergy, and we have a relationship like nobody else. Like sometimes I always say that sometimes when we're having a conversation in our house, I have to let all those listeners there, with to just shut them down. That's because we're pretty earthy. And I have my son Vinny. I was 50 when Vinny was born, and he's now in the USFL. And she's my wing lady, wing man, wing person, wing it, wing whatever you want to call her. But I can't imagine my life without her. I can't imagine my life without my kids. It's been 30 of the greatest years of my life. And if I had to choose between being a Philadelphia Eagle, the movie, or this, it's what I have right now.
Wow, that is actually very, well, that's powerful to say that. That is that shows you how much impact she's had in your life.
Yeah, she's really cool. And every speaking engagement I do, I bring her with me. It's part of the deal. It's part of the contract, and she's part of it because everybody wants to know how. So I do PowerPoint and videos in my presentations, and how true's a movie. Is wife still a Giants fan? And then I have 3 slides dedicated just that. And then eventually I get to bring her up or have her there. And I say, here's a woman that wears the 3 greatest letters in the world on her jersey, USA. And then afterwards, I'll acknowledge anybody that is from law enforcement, and everybody going through COVID. And then people start going, USA, USA. And I get all pimpled, fired up, and I move into my next phase. So, it's great. We have the best relationship. So much, it's all based on trust. And I didn't have the greatest reputation back in the days, but it is what it is.
Well, it's funny because I was looking at those pictures. I'm thinking, boy, this is a good looking dude. He's in the NFL. He's doing this. I'm thinking, boy, oh boy. This, and again, I still thought you could have played the part better than Mark Wahlberg.
Like I said, a few things. I did run a few routes against him. He ran routes against me.
How'd that go?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I trained him for 2 weeks prior to the shooting of the movie at Northeast High School. I didn't train him just as himself. We trained all the football players.
Okay,
how to get him in shape and get the Arena Football League guys. So we did it at Northeast High School, which was ironically Janet's high school, and she's in their Hall of Fame. She's on their Wall of Fame. So it was really cool, and just that whole thing going on in Philadelphia. Mark and I were all over the place. Mm-hmm. Traffic would stop when they saw Wahlberg. And he's the best, man. I just love Mark so much.
Well, let me ask you: was there ever a time that doubt creeped into your head where you weren't sure of yourself, and what did you do for yourself to say, all right, how did you battle that?
Well, I think doubt creeps into everybody's life, and more than anything, because I had gone through that. I went through a really rough time with my first divorce, and I started doubting myself. And basically, what I did is I worked out through it. You in boxing, you could pound it out. You could get there and do it. With me, I would run. I was, even though I was a sprinter, I'd run a lot, just like Rocky. And,
right.
And I just hit the streets and do stuff like that. But, and then there was a time when my mother was going through a lot, and then I had some of my teammates coming at me. That was pretty tough. I was getting bullied a lot when I was a kid, but I didn't have any doubt at all when I was with the Eagles. Because I went in there with the attitude that, hey man, just give it everything you have. And there's no risk involved, because I knew I had a teaching job when I was going to go back. When I came out of college, I was actually going to enlist either in the Army, the Marines, or the Air Force, because Vietnam in '68 was hot and heavy. Mm-hmm. And I was guaranteed by the track teams and the football teams there that I would wind up playing for them, and I wouldn't have to go overseas. So, but wouldn't you know it, Interboro, my alma mater, calls me and said we have a teaching job. So I went back to St. Joe's, and I got 4 courses. I got my certificate, and I wound up teaching and coaching. And we just had the 50th anniversary of the guys that I coached, and we were the county and the district champions, which was really special. Just last month, it was so cool that these guys in their 60s and some of them 60s and some. Here I'm 22 years old coaching 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I got a couple of guys in their late 60s or 70s. They got grandchildren that are older than my kids.
Oh man, yeah. No, it's amazing, right?
It's great. I mean, it's just great. You just can't put into words the life that I've led, and some of the things that I've had happen to me, and it's been all good.
I could say you are definitely truly blessed. I mean, for all the things that have happened, considering where you were to where you come. And again, this is what my podcast initially was about. I did get into boxing, into sports stuff, but I wanted people to understand and have me bring people on that have been through the stuff that you guys have been through.
Well, you surround yourself with a good team.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. Surround yourself with positive people. Every once in a while, that doubt's going to be in there. But what you do is you can't let the past define you. And I used to allow that. And now, I just, in my head, I said, listen, if I can get through a Dick Vermeil training camp, I can do anything. And the only thing I have a lot of doubt about is overcoming my fear of heights. I don't mind flying, but boy, don't put me out on a balcony over 10 stories or anything like that. But that one I'm not going to talk myself out of. Other than that, it's just I can do this. I've been it. It's at first, when I get out speaking, I'd start speaking in front of these CEOs. I was speaking in front, a couple of things, all the police. I was doing a thing for my friend who's a Gold Star father, and I'm speaking to guys from Black Hawk Down, Navy SEALs, Delta Force. And I said, what the hell can I say? And I started doubting myself. He said, just tell your story. So I told him the story about visiting Walter Reed Hospital and the soldiers there looking for a second chance. And life's about getting that second chance, which I got, going all the way back to the Dr. Jack Ramsey days.
Yeah. So where did you, after you were done with football, did you go? I'm a little lost as far as, did you go back into teaching?
No, I didn't. Afterwards, actually, I had an opportunity. I was doing, I was doing the radio and the TV.
Right.
We talked about that, and then I got into sales, and I got into. I started doing some really funky mortgages that as a wholesaler. A lot of people call it hard money lending, but it was through Banco Popular, and I just
I don't think they're around anymore.
Yeah, I had a great career doing that, and then in 2002, the movie came into my life, and Janet and I got married in 93, and we have the Papale group, the Papale team. My son and daughter and Gabby are all licensed in 3 states, including Florida, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And we have our tight little group, and and I was doing the mortgages when Janet and I first started, and then I started working for Sallie Mae doing student loans.
Okay.
Because my CEO of the mortgage company, jumped to be CEO there. And then the movie came out in 2002, and now I make a living traveling around the world. And
now that's something I've always wanted. That's a space that I've always wanted to get in. How was your initial inlet to that?
I don't know. I just had a guy call me, a speakers bureau call me, and I befriended him. He was down in in Virginia, where our Sallie Mae's headquarters were, and I ran into this guy, and he said, and I did an event for him, and he liked how I did it. He says, you better really sharpen up your speaking skills. And he said, because you're going to wind up speaking for the rest of your life. You're going to speak for a living. And I really wasn't comfortable thinking about that because, I would get a little bit nervous, believe it or not, even though I had done the TV and the radio and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I got into my comfort zone, and now I do everything PowerPoint and video. I've got it down pretty good. Everything's customized, and it is what it is. Just today, I just locked up 3 deals in January, and then I'm going to be out in San Diego for the Super Bowl, doing a watch party. So and I just got named the Living Legend Award by the Philadelphia Sports Writers. How that happened is beyond me. But happened. So now I have a house in Philadelphia,
Okay.
and a couple of these events are in Philly. What's really funny is for the last 15 years, I was hardly in Philadelphia doing an engagement. Now, it's a lot of them are in the greater Philadelphia area, which is really cool because I have a house in the Queen Village Historic section, and that's where my son Vinny, who lives and trains there. So, and he's got another year with the USFL, and last year we'll be in the NFL next year.
And wow. So athletically, the family is loaded.
Well, we're jocks, I mean, we golf. We live in a golf course here.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, the Mother's Day gift to Janet is we all golf together. And Gabby's birthday, so Vinny's going to be flying out for her birthday for a week, and we'll play golf with the four of us and our boyfriend or whatever, and it'll be great. So and Gabby was a great athlete, but she cheered for Syracuse, and she's all excited because Syracuse is playing in the FAU Bowl down in Boca, which is only 30 miles south of here. So we're going to go to her alma mater, and so she was so excited today. She said, "Dad, we can get tickets." So here we go. I mean, I'm 77 years old and I haven't grown up yet. You're only as pretty as you feel. And your kids just, my kids are, they're 27 and 29. They just keep me going. It's great every day, and there's not a phone call that we have or a time when we see each other. If we're together, it's that hug and kiss and I love you. And if it's on the phone, it's that I love you, Dad. I love you.
That is awesome.
We didn't have always.
That's awesome. And I could tell, Vince, just by talking to you, you were truly blessed. I mean, to have everything that's happened in your life. And I could see the excitement that comes out of you talking about your family, talking about your life, talking about what you've done. It is an amazing thing that you have. And I am fortunate enough to interview someone like you that I can only hope I can live up to anything nearly as good as you've done in your life.
Oh, come on, man. George, you probably made an impact on a lot of people. And hold on one second. My daughter and I have a podcast called Gabbing with In-Vince-Ible. You want to see a pretty cool podcast?
That is awesome.
Yeah. So
great. Gabriella.
Yeah. So you can, so Gabriella.
What is it called?
Yeah. So you can see Gabby's right up there. That's her Syracuse stuff. And I wasn't sure what the full screen was. So we have so this is a guy that wants to produce our podcast. It's really cool.
That's awesome. I mean, to get to talk to people like this is really cool. That's what I wanted to do. Obviously, I want to get into the space of speaking, and I'm just a regular bagel guy. I don't do much.
Hey, I was just a regular salesman too. I mean, I just got lucky. So George, you ever need any, just you or your brother, just give me a call. I'll do everything.
We'd love to. I'd love to hook back up with you here. What is the name of the podcast that your daughter's doing with you?
Gabbing with In-Vince-Ible.
Gabbing with In-Vince-Ible.
And you can catch it on my website, vincepapale.com. It's really simple. And if anybody, is interested in having me come out and spill my guts to them, just go to my website and it says contact Vince, and there's a whole interactive form that comes right to me and me only.
Now, do you have your podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube?
Yeah, it's on you. Yeah, best to find on YouTube.
Okay, yeah. So subscribe.
We took a little break because of some things, Gabby moving and stuff like that. But yeah, we're gonna resurrect it right around the Super Bowl.
That's at perfect timing. Perfect timing. Yeah. But again, Vince, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Your story is when I told people that I was going to have you on, I couldn't believe how many younger generation kids came to me and said, "You're going to have In-Vince-Ible on?" I said, "Yeah, he's going to be on." And even my kids said, "That's so cool."
Can I give him my favorite quote?
Sure.
All right. So this is a quote that was good. Now, I'm like one of them. I'm this 18-year-old kid and comes from parents that didn't get beyond the 8th grade and all this and all that. And then my high school coach, he's one who, aside from my parents, put them on Rushmore. But my high school coach, George Corner, gave me this great quote when I'm trying out for the team. Said, "Happy are those who dream dreams and are willing to pay the price to make their dreams come true." And we all have those dreams. But if you're not willing to make those sacrifices and all those other necessary ingredients to pay the price, it'll never happen. And then you're just kidding yourself and kidding everybody around you. So be ready. But dream big, baby, and win the day, because you don't know what tomorrow. Tomorrow we have no idea, man. Every time you see an alert, FBI about this and terror alert, I say, "Oh, geez, oh man, just get through today."
I know.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Vince, again, we'll be getting in contact again with you. I want to do something with you more, and I appreciate you being a guest on the show.
George, it was great. Tell your brother I said hi. You guys are an In-Vince-Ible team. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Have an In-Vince-Ible 24. And like I said, win the day and fly, Eagles, fly. Our wings are a little clipped right now, but we'll be all right.
You'll be good.
Okay.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, my man. See you,
all right, Merry Christmas.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.